Hi everyone, it's Helen from the Squiggly Careers podcast, and I want to give you a super quick summary of this week's episode, which is about fast and frequent feedback. We've actually covered feedback quite a lot, but from different perspectives, because it's a pretty big challenge, to be honest. There's some different things going on with feedback. What we find, and when you look in the research, is that because we as humans have a negativity bias in our brain, we tend to assume the worst about most situations, to be honest. But this starts to affect how we feel about feedback. Because when we think about feedback, we assume it's somebody who's going to say there's something we need to improve on. And whilst we can be very growth mindset about it, for a lot of us, that fear can trigger a fixed mindset, which can make us feel really awkward about feedback. And it means that we don't go and get it proactively. And so, as well as fear being a bit of a blocker for feedback, you also have lots of formality. So often in organizations, there's loads of feedback processes because organizations are trying to help us get this information to improve. So they put processes in place so that we get it. But then that just makes us rely on the processes. We don't proactively even go and get feedback. It means all the messages get loaded up into this like annual conversation, which just creates even more fear. And this is not a great situation. And so what we need to do is get fast and frequent feedback. We need to move out some of the formality and just make it part of how we work. So one of the first things that can be useful is how you define feedback. This has really helped me. The definition that I find most useful is that feedback is data for my development. Because when I think about it as data, it makes me think, oh, well, what I need to do is get a lot of data. I need to get lots and lots of information, because then I can spot the insights and the trends, and that will give me the information I need to improve. And so it means that I can't just rely on feedback from one person, because that's not enough data for my development. I need to go and get it from lots of different people, lots of different places. I'm not going to be swayed by any one person's opinion. I'm going to make my own decisions about my development because I've got lots of data. So find your own definition, data for your development, information that helps you improve, whatever works for you, but go get feedback and get a lot of it, because then when you've got that information, you can decide what you want to do about it. In the podcast episode this week, we talk about 5 different ideas for action to help you get more fast, more frequent feedback so you get more data for your development. A couple of the ideas now, just so that you kind of know what you'll be listening to. And the first one that we talk about is praise plus. So lots of people give praise and think it's feedback. So that would sound like, well done, great job today, thought that was brilliant. And it's nice, like it's really nice to hear, but it's not really enough information to help you improve. So all you want to do is get into a habit of following up that praise with a request for feedback. So, you might sort of think about it as like, it was brilliant because, so when someone says to you, oh, I thought that was great today, you can reply and say, thank you, so acknowledge it, and then ask, what was it that made it really good today? Because I want to do it again in the future. And so you can just ask those follow-up questions. The more that you do it, the more you'll get more information from the praise that you're getting. The other thing that can be really useful is take an activity that you almost do on autopilot. So it's something you do every day. So maybe I could think, oh, doing these videos or recording a podcast or delivering a career development session, like those sort of things that I do very, very frequently. And take one of those things, one of those really frequent activities that you do, and think about each week, what would make it even better if. So you're not trying to be, go from sort of, let's say you're 6 out of 10 now to 10 out of 10 tomorrow. You're just saying, okay, well, what would 6.5 be? And then next week, what would 7 be? And then next week, what would 7.5 be? And it's this incremental improvement, but on one specific area that you do a lot, that can have a really big impact on your work. It means that you'll be really focused with the feedback that you're getting, and it doesn't feel so dramatic in terms of your development, because each week you're trying to get a little bit better. You're moving from autopilot to sort of auto improve on that particular activity that you spend doing a lot of time. So 5 different ideas for action, all on the podcast. You can get our podcast wherever you listen. So like Spotify, Apple, you'll find our podcast. Just search for Squiggly Careers. Also worth noting that every single episode comes with a pod sheet, so you can get a summary of all the tools and some quotes and coach yourself questions that can really, after you've listened, you can sort of learn a bit more deeply. You can download those from our website, amazingif.com. And if you sign up on the podcast page for Pod Mail, then every week on a Tuesday, you'll get basically everything in your inbox, all the links that you need. Also worth looking out for our PDF of 100 Squiggly Career pod sheets, because we've brought the last 100 together into one big mammoth career development document. I don't know what else to call it, but it has all of that information in one place for you. Really good to use for your development and for your teams as well. So I hope that is helpful. Let us know. Give us some feedback on feedback. You can always email us. We're Helen and Sarah at squigglycareers.com.